Welcome to yet another episode of the PALITICUS podcast, this time in video interview format. Today we're talking to Robert M Silva, the president and founding member of Portuguese Discovery Monument Foundation. You are from Middletown, Rhode Island. Thank you for joining us today here at the National Portuguese American Conference in Washington, D.C. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 52 years. Born in Rhode Island, raised in Rhode Island. Went to Providence College, then Boston College Law School. I ended up moving from East Providence to Newport to practice law, and I've been there ever since. Raised with my wife 5 wonderful kids and 7 grandchildren, and like I said, I've been practicing general law for about 52 years.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, a long-standing member of the community, I'm sure. You're one of the faces that everyone looks to.
Well, I did get involved back in 1968 in politics. Ran for local town council, Middletown Town Council. Stayed there 18 years, was president, mayor of the council for probably 10 or 12 of the 18 years. Got myself involved in politics and civic support efforts, and in particular, I maintained my roots with the Portuguese organizations.
Wonderful.
Going back to the Portuguese Cultural Foundation with Peter Calvé back in the early 60s and 70s. And then it morphed into the Portuguese Discovery Monument Foundation, which is related to the unique and one-of-its-kind monuments, I think, of the country.
So tell us a little bit about the monument itself.
There was a gentleman in Middletown, Arthur Raposo, who had a dream. He wanted to put up a statue to honor Vasco da Gama because of the great explorations that the Portuguese had and the age of golden navigation. Arthur came to the Portuguese Cultural Foundation, which is the organization I was in at that time, and we took his idea, but it was too simplistic, and we expanded it so as to include the entire golden age of navigation from the 1400s to the 1500s, Prince Henry's School of Navigation, the great history that Portuguese provided the world in discovering most of it back then, and we expanded the concept that Arthur had to what we now have, which is a rather prominent monument. It was put together by architect Chagas Almeida, renowned in Portugal. Everything was milled and mined in Portugal, brought over to our country, and it was assembled in Newport at Brenton Point. That was in 1989, and it was dedicated by the late President of the Republic of Portugal, Mario Soares.
Okay.
Since then, the monument, which was made out of sandstone, ran into some difficulties with the harsh New England weather.
Right, I can imagine.
And it ended up absorbing moisture during the winter, expanding and cracking, and ultimately, after 10 or 15, 20 years, we had to take it down.
Right.
Just recently, we managed, through the good offices of some Portuguese American political powers, the Senate President Teresa Paiva-Weed, the Senate Finance Chairman Dan DuPont, and the head of the House Finance Committee, Helio Mello. Over a 3-year period, we gained maybe about $1.3 million, and we rebuilt the monument, rededicated it in 2014, but this time it's constructed out of Maine granite.
Okay.
It's going nowhere.
Right.
In 2014, we had Ambassador Nino Brito appear at the site, and he dedicated it again. And most recently, a couple of Wednesdays ago, we had Ambassador Vital with the captain and crew of the Cyrus that was in Newport at that point in time, and they had a wreath-laying ceremony in honor of the navigators, all of them, Magellan, Corte Real, and whatnot. And it's a monument that really has not been discovered, even though it's a discovery monument.
Right.
And we're here, John Dias, my good friend from Newport, who's the chairman and president of the Vasco da Gama Club, a very solid Portuguese organization that goes back to the 1800s. We've been thinking in terms of trying to identify the monument and get it promoted. And when I spoke with Marie Fraley and Sylvia Oliveira, they asked me would I come to the PALCUS convention, and when I found out what it was the initial one and whatnot, I said I'll take the time, John and I will come down, we'll bring some documentation, and we'll at least try to identify the existence of the monument.
Right. It's a good opportunity to expose the monument to the community that may not be aware of it. I, for one, was not aware of the monument, to be honest. So that's great. I'll have to make some time to go and see it.
Well, Newport is a great tourist attraction.
I've been to Newport, and I wasn't aware of the monument. So, I mean, I'm glad that you're able to get the word out, even through this conference.
It's on what we call Ocean Drive, which is a tourist route right along the water and the sea, and it is a replica of Sagres in southern Portugal, where Prince Henry had his school of navigation.
Yes.
It's almost identical, and if you stand at the site and you point in one direction, you go far enough, it's Portugal.
Oh, wow. That's super interesting that you took that geographical notation into account. So, what does the foundation work on day to day? I know that you said that it's made of, super sturdy granite, so maintenance is probably not an issue, although I'm sure that there is thought put into maintaining the monument. Is it now more of a marketing project, an exposure project, so that people know about it?
Yeah. We're working in conjunction with Fort Adams Foundation, which is a historic fort that's right about 10 minutes away on the Ocean Drive as well. And we're looking to educate Portuguese American students and others about the navigation feats of the Portuguese navigators, the history of Portugal, and in general identify the great history and accomplishments. For example, Prince Henry's organization designed the caravel, which is a Portuguese ship, and a lantine sail. That was the first arrangement where ships could tack into the wind and sail, and that went a great deal of distance so they could discover the world, new paths to China and Macau and other places. So we want to preserve that. We want to pass it on, not only to Portuguese Americans or Luso Americans, but the world in general. So we'll be looking at a completion of the monument. There are aspects of it that have not yet been completed, so we have to do a campaign to get some more money. But the maintenance is modest at this time. However, there are insurance coverages, administrative coverages, and once we expand and bring in classes and organizations and programs, there'll be more to do. That's the next step.
Wonderful, and I'm glad that, and we're glad that you took the opportunity to come here and speak about the monument and try to inform people, because it's definitely an admirable effort and something that everyone should know about, not just Portuguese Americans, because it does have to do with discovering the world. But as someone who was at the conference today, what is your take on PALCUS and what we do for the Portuguese American community and how effective we are as a voice, or not, if that is the case, in your opinion?
Well, I go back to the origin of PALCUS. I made several of the meetings and whatnot, and then the practice of law, the raising of families, and everything else got in the way. And I always stayed in touch with PALCUS, but I hadn't come back to any of the annual meetings and whatnot. I'm very, very much impressed with this convention, with how the staff is all volunteer. And what they do, and when you take a look at the badges that are here, the people from all over the United States of Portuguese heritage, it's really remarkable. And I think that if anything is served by this convention, it's a gathering of people who are bound by a heritage but that did not know about each other or their accomplishments all over the United States. And that is something that is critical going forward, that we know each other and we are resourceful and we'll be able to communicate with each other. So I've met a number of wonderful people in politics, like I have been, and out of politics, in education, and there's always a common thread, which is Portuguese culture and Portuguese people and our country.
Right. Well, clearly you've known of PALCUS for quite a few years now, and PALCUS has known of you. I personally just met you today, and I thank you for taking the time to sit and speak with me for a little bit, and I'm glad to have been given the opportunity to meet you through this conference, just like so many other great people.
That's what happens with the conference.
Right.
I wouldn't have met you unless the conference did what it was doing.
Right, exactly.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.